Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CI Tools webinar. My name is Josh Osborne and I'm the product manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And this is a weekly webinar that we do every Thursday, depending on where you are in the world, every Thursday, to look at stuff to do with the CI Tools. Today, we are going to be having a look at schedules in the Keynotes tool. I had a request this week asking about how to define a default setup for Keynote schedules so that you can lay out your schedule settings to work a certain way and then have all of your schedules work in the same way, essentially, sort of a template for your schedules. So I am going to cover how you can do that using the Keynotes tool this week. Yeah, I'll see how we go. If we have time at the end of that, we might have a little look at schedule notes in Doors and Windows as well, because someone was asking about that too. But the main thing we'll be looking at Keynote schedule default settings. I'm going to be using ArchiCAD 28, but pretty much everything that we're going to be looking at today is also available in 27 and 26 at least. If not further back, so you should be fine to use those if you're on an older version. If you do have any questions about the process as we go through, just enter those in the chat panel and I will try to cover those at the end of the session, or I'll create a support ticket with you later or something like that. If you do think of anything else you would like to see covered in one of these webinars, or just have a question about the tools that you'd like help with, send those through to us on nz.support@centralinnovation.com. That will make its way through to our support team, and they will either help you out with your query or forward your request for a topic onto me, and I'll cover it in a future session. All right, so the Keynotes tool. So the use case that we're talking about here is that, as you hopefully already know, we're not going to go through and show how the Keynotes tool itself works. So hopefully you're already roughly familiar with that. If not, there are plenty of recorded webinars already on how to use that. So you could check back on one of those. But in this scenario, we are going to say that we're already set up with a bunch of keynotes in our project. I'm just going to throw a few down here so that we have something to schedule. And the idea here is that we want to create our Keynote schedules on multiple different sheets in our ArchiCAD project without having to click Create Schedule, go through the settings, change the settings to what we want, and then move to the next layout, click Create Schedule, reset all of the same settings again, and so on and so on. So the idea here is that we will set it once, and we won't have to do it any more times than that. It also has the advantage that if we in future make updates to our default schedule settings, we can just hit the update command in the Keynotes tool and everything else will be updated to reflect those changes. So we can effectively redefine the schedule template, and without having to do any extra work beyond pressing the update button, we can propagate those changes through to all of our existing schedules, which is very nice. So now that we've got a bunch of note labels placed down, I'll close this actually because we're not going to need it anymore after this. And I'm going to go to my layout sheets, go to the ground floor layout here. You can see we've got our drawing placed here, and there's plenty of note labels available, so there should be a decent sized schedule here. So we're going to go CI Tools menu, Keynotes, Create Schedule. Gives us our usual settings here. So we're going to schedule just the current layout. We're going to schedule the notes that are visible in this layout. This is the default options, and it's probably what you'll be using 95% of the time, I would say. And then down at the bottom here, we've got this option, Apply Settings, either of the schedule in the master layout or of the default schedule. It will default to the master layout option, and that's what we're going to be using today. However, if you do want to set it as a one-time thing, maybe you have a single layout sheet, which is the exception to the rule, you can do that as well by switching to this option here and then pressing Settings and setting it up the way that you want it here. It's only ever going to apply to the one that you place here. You'll have to redo this each time, but that will let you do that. I'm going to change back to the master layout option because that's what we're going to be doing though, and I'm going to hit OK. And it has placed a keynote schedule down here. I must have been messing with this a little bit, so the positioning is a little odd. But here we go. So we've got our keynote schedule as you would expect it to look. Now, this hasn't picked up any settings from a keynote template because we don't have one, is the reason why that hasn't happened. So it's placed the default schedule with the default settings. So what we're going to do now is we're going to define a template for this to use. So if I go into my settings here, you can see on the configuration page here, down on the bottom right, we've got this option that says schedule on the master layout. And you can tick the option to apply settings on update, which will do the thing I mentioned before where it will propagate the changes through. So we're going to be using that as well. So for now, let's just get rid of this schedule. And we're going to go to our master layout. So at the moment, I'm using the A1 landscape master. So let's go to A1 landscape. And we're going to place our keynote schedule template down here. So grabbing the object tool, we're going to grab our keynote schedule. Mine's already there because I've done this before, but you can see from our library tree here, we're under CI Tools Library Keynotes, and there's a single object in there. So we're going to select that one, and we'll set up the way that we want this to work. So I'll just make some changes so that it's obvious as to whether this one is being used. I'll leave everything on. We'll change the font to something recognizable. And let's change the color as well, just so that we can see that this has actually worked or not. And let's align it to the right as well. And I'll leave everything else as it is. You'll see that this setting is here because this is our master layout sheet. We can ignore this one for now. So we're going to hit OK, and then we'll place this down. So we've got our note schedule here. Obviously, it's not going to look very exciting because this is an empty schedule, but you can see the shape of it. You can see that it is using the lovely fuchsia color that we chose there, and it's right aligned. So let's pretend that that's what we're going to go with. So let's move it over to the right here and put it on the side there. Now we can go back to our actual layout sheet, and we'll run the same command again. So we'll go CI Tools, not detail elements, keynotes, create a schedule, use all of the same settings as before, except this time with the schedule on the master layout option chosen, it's actually going to do that. It's going to bring through those settings. So we hit OK again, and it will respond as usual. Now, the positioning is not quite right. This is actually, it looks like a slight bug in the tool, but it's very easy to work around, which is that as soon as we've placed it, we just run a quick update, and it will... Nope. Okay. My apologies. I did that last time. Anyway, the point is that the formatting is all what we set it to. So the settings of the actual object. I'm not sure what's happened with the placement. I'll figure out what the deal is there. But you can see we've got our nice pink notes. You can see that our font is using that Avena black, I think it was. We're all right aligned, and otherwise everything is showing as it should do. So we can jump into here, and you can see that we've got the apply settings on update box ticked this time. We didn't have it ticked there before because there was no master layout, but now that there is one, this will be ticked by default. And you can see that all of my settings are grayed out now. So I can't make changes to any of these. And the reason why is because I am locked in to the settings that are on my master layout. So I'm locked into using the settings that I've predefined. If I want to override that, I can do that by unticking this box. So if I untick that, everything will ungray, and we're essentially saying I'm going to be my own schedule now. I don't care about what's on the master. I do what I like, basically. So we can go through and make changes to those. However, as soon as you do that, you lose the ability to bring through changes from the master layout. Obviously, you're sort of unlinking yourself by doing that. So we'll keep that one turned on. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our master again, And we'll make some changes and check that that has come through. So selecting our schedule here, let's go through, we'll change the color. This is mostly just so that it's very easy to spot that the changes have come through properly. Let's go with a nice Baskerville. And let's justify the text. And let's also make the categories show with a bold underline. And the frame should be anchored by, let's go with the bottom instead of at the top. Rounded corners, there we go. All right, so again, you're not going to see much changes here because it's just an empty object. The other thing I do want to note before we move on here as well is that, and you may have noticed this already if you're following along, or you may have just seen it before, this is actually something that is placed on our master layout sheet. You can see that on your master. So if I go back to ground floor, obviously we have our schedule placed, but if I come over here, you will see showing in red as it does for all master items, you'll see that displaying there, which you probably don't want. I'm gonna venture that you probably don't want that. So we'll go back into the object settings and back on the configuration page here, in roughly the place where the update setting is on the actual layout sheet schedules. This one is on the master, and so it has this option instead. Placed on the master layout, hide the schedule. So what this is saying is, if you are placed on a master layout, then you should hide the schedule. So it will still store the settings, and all of our layout sheets will inherit it, but it will be invisible effectively. So we don't get anything coming through from the master in that way. So you will almost always want this to be turned on if you are using this function. So turn on the hide the schedule option, hit OK, and now it will disappear. So we've got nothing there. It's still actually there. So if we select that area, you'll see that it is there. Oh, we moved our anchor point, didn't we? Shift that. So the settings are still there. You can still grab it if you know where it is, but it's invisible, so it's not going to show up on our sheets anymore. So you see notes disappears from there now. So now that we've made those changes to the setup and also made it invisible, we can go back through and run the update again. Update schedules. Okay. All right, so now we've changed the set out point from the top to the bottom. So obviously it shifts it up, which makes sense. We've got our lovely Baskerville font being used across the whole thing. We've got orange at the top here, and then we have our categories in bold and underlined, all as we told it to. So that has done exactly what we told it to, and this will apply across multiple sheets as well. So if we go to a different layout, did any of the labels make it through there? No. Okay, I'm just going to place down another copy of this one. Cheating, I know, but anyway. So we have a second layout. We're going to again use the master settings, hit OK. That will bring through those settings there. So we've got 105 and 102 are both using the master layout settings. So just to really prove that it is doing what I'm saying it's doing, we can go through here, make some changes again. So we'll go and change it to lovely green there. And let's choose something really pretty like Comic Sans. Let's go back to left align and let's make the categories red and italic. Okay. All right. So again, we don't see any changes here because it's invisible. That's fine. Now, before we even go back to the other views, we know that they're not going to have changed. So I can just update it from anywhere. So I'll say update schedules, update all layouts, hit OK. and then go and open one of those sheets. 102, you can see it's done it already for us. So we've got our delightful Comic Sans showing here in a lovely parrot green and red for our categories there. And if I move to this other sheet, you'll see it's already done there as well. So we've got those same changes there. So as you can see, at this point, with all of your schedules placed on all of the layouts that you want them on, it becomes very quick and easy to make changes as you go. So you can go through and mark up anything at any point and then just hit the update command and it will send those changes out to all of these here. So having a schedule placed on the master, an invisible schedule placed on the master, probably a good thing to put into your template, so that basically it makes it so that you don't have to do anything for your views. You don't even really have to remember to do anything different when you're creating your schedules, because the default setting has, at least for quite a long time, has been to use the master layout sheet anyway. In most cases, this is already probably what you are using, unless you're choosing to override them each time. So you don't really need to remember any different workflow there. Just get some template schedules placed onto your masters, and that's pretty much all there is to the process. Obviously, this will only work on layouts that actually use, oops, that's a schedule, that actually use the master that we have a schedule on. So if I go to a different sheet that's using a different master and I apply the same workflow, but I don't have a object placed down on its master, it won't be able to pick up any settings there, so it'll use the default settings rather than my specified ones. So if you do have multiple masters, just copy and paste the object onto each one that you want. There may be some cases when you want it to be different. Maybe on the A4 one, you want the font to be smaller or something like that. You can do that as well, obviously. So these can all be different settings for your schedules, and they will show differently to reflect those changes. But again, you just run one update and it will update everything to reflect that. So that is using the Keynotes schedule master thing to define a template for your keynotes. I'm just going to quickly pause the screen share and see if we've had any questions about that. Just one moment. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions about, whoops, that's the wrong slide, about that. So hopefully that means it made complete sense. With the positioning, I'm not quite sure why that didn't work. So I'm going to look into that, but it will remember where you moved it to. Obviously, we changed the anchor point, which is why this one moved. But if you don't change that, then they will stay in place. And if you do, then you're doing it because you want them to move. So it will reflect that change as well. I don't have time to cover off during window schedule notes with what's left. So I think we'll probably finish up there, keep it nice and short for today. I have written a document on how this process works as well. So if you head to our knowledge base and go to the keynote section there, you'll see that there's an article there about using the master layout to define keynote schedule settings. So if you ever want to refer back to this later, or you have anyone else who might want to do it and doesn't want to sit through 15 minutes of me blathering about it, you can refer to the knowledge base article instead. So just head to our knowledge base via MyCI and look under the keynotes section for that. All right. Well, thanks for your time, everyone. As I said before, if you think of anything else you would like to ask about this process of setting a default for your Keynote schedules, or just about Keynotes in general, or just about the CI tools in general, email those through to nz.support@centralinnovation.com, and our support team there will help you. Uh, they're very good. I would highly recommend them. If you have any suggestions for future webinars, if there's anything that you would like to see me cover in one of these in future, I'm always on the lookout for things to talk about during these. Also email those through to the same place, nz.support@centralinnovation.com. That will make its way through to the support desk, who will forward it through to me to say, hey, someone suggested that you talk about whatever it is that you suggest. Also, if you haven't got the tools already, maybe you're interested in them, but you don't actually have the tools or you haven't tried them before, you can get a free 30-day trial of them just by going to myci.centralinnovation.com/free trial. That will allow you to sign up for a free trial. It lasts for 30 days. There's no limitations apart from the fact that it'll stop working after 30 days. You don't have to put in your credit card details to start the trial or anything like that. You can start off right away and get into trying out the tools. The trial won't actually begin until you begin using the tools. So you can sign up anytime and then just start using the tools whenever is convenient for you. And once the trial does expire, if you choose not to purchase the CI tools, so long as you just keep the library loaded so that the objects still stay, anything that you've made using the tools during the trial will stay there. They're not going to all disappear if you let the trial expire and don't choose to purchase. You can keep them all as they were. If you placed a bunch of cabinets or keynote schedules or something, they'll stay exactly as they were when you finished the trial. You won't be able to edit them or create more, so you won't be able to place more cabinets. You won't be able to modify the modules in your cabinets or anything like that, but they will stay exactly as they were as a sort of a snapshot of their final state. If you do at some point in the future choose to start your subscription, you'll be able to resume editing those just as if nothing happened. And if not, then you can just finish up that project, get it shipped out, and then don't even think about the tools anymore after that, if that's what you want to do. So yeah, myci.centralinnovation.com/free trial for that trial version. And if you have any questions during that trial, use the same email address to ask us anything about that. That's enough from me for today, though. Thanks very much for coming, and I hope to catch you at the next one. See ya.